Got it. Got it. What's going on in India?
Besides, construction workers have decided to be banging on something right when we're about to do this. Nothing much.
I know, but isn't that predictable?
I know, it'll always happen.
Okay, so, today we're going to talk about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Mhm.
And God knows I never thought we'd be hearing about a Kennedy again, other than drunken nephews and nieces of the famous grifter family. So being Irish Catholic like there, that's just a family of effing criminals, right?
Mhm. Yes, I'm pretty aware of
They
that.
they they were the ones that smuggled the booze in and sold it to the mafia back in Prohibition. They literally were the kingpins of Prohibition.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the actual kingpins. The mafia was beneath them. Yeah.
The mafia was basically like runners for them doing their shit.
Uh-huh. Right. Errand boys. And they don't want to hear that because they sold millions in their city, and the country boy white guys all knew how to make whiskey and shit out of stills. But
Yeah.
it was the Kennedys smuggling in all the decent stuff from Scotland and Ireland. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That is, well.
Yeah. And so John Kennedy's dad was the crook, and he
Mhm.
also manipulated the stock market a whole bunch. I mean, he was an OG, the original gangster, like the real thing. So when
Mhm.
John was running for president, the dad was the one that cut the deal with the Italians because he'd worked with them for so long. And then when John and his brother decided to screw over the Italians, you see how that worked out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So now we move on to Robert,
Mhm.
who, to be totally honest with you, I never listened to anything the guy said, because once he was in, and he isn't necessarily an anti-vaxxer. He's an anti-mask, and he thinks a lot of the vaccination stuff was bullshit. Now,
Mhm.
so I quit paying attention to it. Now, because I knew we were doing this podcast, I bet I listened to 40 interviews with him, and aside from his voice and talks, I don't know if you can be president. I mean, the guy's smart as a whip. That may be the
Mhm.
smartest, and he isn't a rhetoric guy. He isn't using rhetoric, which is what I
Mhm.
do, what you do, what everybody in England does. That was their way.
Yeah.
Um, if I didn't know about the COVID stuff, I would undoubtedly vote for him, support him, and give him money. But the
Mhm.
downside is, do we really need another Kennedy in there, or another Bush, or another Clinton, or for that matter, another Reagan? I mean,
Yeah.
didn't we kill a bunch of those people and get fucking rid of them so we didn't have to do this stuff? That's my worry. That's my
That
concern.
dynasty politics.
Yeah. I mean, here's what I'd tell anybody listening in India. So my dad, in his office, for lack of a better word, that he never used, it was a workshop down in the basement of our house, had a picture of the Pope, and it had a picture of John F. Kennedy. And those were the only pictures in our entire house that weren't of our family. And people don't understand. So we were, the lower working class in America for, at least a generation and a half. And so when the
Mhm.
Kennedys came along, even though they were criminals, we quite frankly didn't care. Did we know it? Of course we
Mhm.
did. Did we care? No, we wanted one of our guys in. Um, John was an ineffective president. And
Mhm.
he really was. He wasn't a good president. He was just really good looking, and his wife was really good looking, and his family was really good looking. And that was enough for my people because we finally got one of ours in. And then,
Mhm. An Irish
Robert tried
Catholic.
to, yeah, right. And then,
Mhm.
so his brother Robert tries to run the next time around, right in the middle of, you think Black Lives Matter was tough? The 1960s made Black Lives Matter look like they didn't even exist. And people
Mhm.
in America, truthfully, don't know that, even though it's 50 years ago. Have
Yeah.
no idea how big of a deal it was to have these two rich white boys look out for black people, which is the first time anybody had ever looked out for black people.
Mhm.
First time in, what are we at, 250 years now?
Yeah.
So the name will work in the black community, and that's the black females are the most dependable voter in the Democratic politics. So he knows what he's carving out, and it's smart. It really is. Does Biden need a contender? Yes, he does. You know, yes, he does. So when you told me to do all this, and I know I'm occupying all the airtime, I go to this meeting yesterday morning with this guy that does Democratic politics all over the world, literally all over the world. I've never met anybody like it. And and he's talking to me about bringing RFK Jr., which is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to Oklahoma. And I go, I got to do a podcast about that tomorrow. And he goes, you ever want me on there? I'm your guy.
Oh, like, nice.
Oh, too late now. Right. Too late now. But he's real smart. His name's Ben Eisenberg. And he's also going to bring in Marianne Williamson. I knew she was running, but I didn't know she was running as a Democrat. So Joe Biden has two actual contenders.
Oh, wow. I had no idea the other one existed.
Yeah. And so the way this works is our state gets money from the DNC because our Democratic Party is basically defunct. So they give us $15,000 a month to run the office and keep some of the computer equipment up.
Okay.
In return for that, we basically go, well, hey, Joe's our guy. Yeah. Nobody feels that way. We'll all vote for him over Donald Trump, but, would we like somebody maybe in their 60s? Yes. I'd even take 70s at this point over those two old guys. But so this guy and some other people are going to bring in these outsiders and see what they do. But it'll cause a huge rift in our party here.
Yeah. I would guess
which, who cares? We're not in power anyway. So it doesn't matter. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter. So, okay, I've taken up almost all the time. So jump in, please. Sorry.
Oh, no, I did see like a really long interview of RFK on Bill Maher's podcast. And it was quite interesting to watch that because Maher was trying to guide him as to what to say and what not to say, and kept questioning him about the anti-vax and all of that. Because the whole thing Maher was trying to tell him is that, dude, the press is not your friend. The moment you announce, they're going to ask you about all the stupid shit you said as well. You better have answers for them. And he tried like guiding him, and he had just finished like a throat surgery. So his voice sounds a lot better now. At least on that interview, it sounded a little decent too. Yeah.
It needs to, because it's weird. He'd be better off using one of those talk out of his neck shit. I mean, it's sad, but look, the Kennedy name will carry him. I mean, people worldwide have no idea what that carries here. Even though Kennedy's other brother killed a lady in the river and left her there to die and saved himself. What a piece of shit. But he was a good politician. But he did do that. He left her in there. Yeah.
Half of them did like weird shit, and half of them just died in weird adventurous shit that they were trying.
So, my favorite son, Kyle, he's really not my favorite son, but he's the one that still talks to me.
I like that the bar is set that low.
It's so low, right? So low that I took him all over Scotland to see what we used to be in charge of, because our family and our clan, for lack of a better word, has always been able to achieve great heights, and then our ego gets the best of us, and we have terrible, terrible falls. And they're all pretty well documented in history. And I would say the same thing for Kennedy. Here's the funny thing. You know what Kennedy means in Gaelic? Big head.
Really?
Yeah. They have gigantic heads. I know. I know more about these people than I should, just from parental fascination. I am not fascinated with the Klan themselves. Yeah. I am fascinated that they understood, as politics was changing from just factual-based debate to television, they understood that was their opportunity and they took it.
Oh yeah, correct. Those were like the first. Those were like the first politicians who were like geared for the 21st century, where they were good on TV. They knew that they just needed to go through like their stump speech over and over again, different radio channels, news channels, and get it out there.
And they understood that America, like Richard Nixon, was incredibly smart. I read his autobiography years ago. I don't know if his was Carpetbagger's Son or if that was another guy's, but anyway, Richard Nixon's autobiography, incredibly intelligent, but he looked swarmy. Like he always had an 8 o'clock shadow. His hair was always kind of like not Italian greased where it looked really well done. It was just greasy. And his face looked greasy. And he, like a lot of people, mistook politics for being factual and driven mostly by ideas. And it's not. It's driven by looks. So I don't know with Robert. What do you tell me what you know about him and what you think he's going to be able to accomplish?
See, the interesting things that I found out about him, because we were going to do this, was that he was in federal prison in Puerto Rico for 3 months.
The hell did he do?
He sued the Navy for either explosions or some sort of testing that they were polluting the soil in that part. And
nice.
As they kind of did like a civil disobedience type thing, and they were all thrown in jail. And it was supposed to be for like a day, but it ended up being like 30 days or a couple of months. I'm not sure what it was. But also I heard, I was reading about the fact that he sued Monsanto, the fucking, and those are like good things about him. And then I hear all this weird vaccination crap, and I'm like, oh, dude, knock it off. Just stick to that one.
Well, and the problem with the vaccination stuff, he goes, well, we still had 1 million people die. And you go, because they wouldn't wear fucking masks. Literally, they were manipulated into thinking this thing was going to go away. The countries that did really well with this masked up and stuck with it. It's so even though I will go see him speak here and everything, I'm hesitant to even get a photo with him over that stuff. Right.
Yeah, I know. That thing kind of makes you weirdly radioactive.
Yeah. And sticking with it. But, you know, here's the other thing that I would say. His dad had his head blown off. His uncle had his head blown off by literally people we could predict that were going to do it. Yeah. You know, you think of, so all of this stuff happens with his parents. Did anything happen to George Bush for starting the war in Iraq that's now cost us $9 trillion?
Yeah.
Nothing. They're all walking around like nothing happened. So, for one, if he gets close to Joe Biden, he needs to be concerned.
Yeah.
That could be bad for him. Now, if he wants to get in there and just stir shit like I do, God bless him. And that's legitimately what we need, is somebody who maybe he does have an inside and knows more stuff than we do, but he's not explaining it in a way that says that.
Yeah, the really fascinating part was that he didn't have any of like the stump speeches written out, nobody working with him, trying to tell him like, hey, follow this, do this, you're going on a couple of podcasts. He did Joe Rogan's podcast, which was off the rails, because they talked for like 3 fucking hours. Yeah. Whereas Bill Maher's was like an hour and a half. And most of the times you could just tell that Bill Maher was trying to steer him in a decent enough direction where he was like, you need to be there and you have a good voice, but I don't know, you really have to like get somebody, like get a team together and explain your weird theories on vaccinations and crap. And Ma tried to steer him to the fact that it might not, like, he's just not articulating what he's trying to say correctly. Right. In the sense
that's why that's why you hire comms people, communications people. You know, they teach you how to do that. Maybe he's a super ego because the guy is freaking jacked. Oh, yeah. I don't know if he's on steroids, but he's 68 or 69 years old. No one looks like that unless they're on steroids.
Yeah, even if you ask the Hulk Hogan, he'd be like, yeah, I'm sharing my stash with him.
Right. But I'm telling you, there's a part of the population that loves the fact that he's talking shit and he's obviously a bit of a beast, you know. His uncles made it because they were a little softer, you know what I mean? Yeah. And look, he probably knows he's an outsider, but so was Bill Clinton. You know, Bill Clinton didn't have a chance, and hell, he was a governor from Arkansas that went around chasing college girls and his governor's limo every weekend. I mean, that's the truth.
and the playing the saxophone.
Right. And the guy ended up being president. So what is cool about Joe Kennedy? What makes you want to be him? Well, he's a jack 69-year-old that says whatever the fuck he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't care. Isn't that the Democratic Donald Trump?
Yeah, that is actually. They are so similar in certain ways. Like even even to the point where I was like, is your skin tone similar?
Right. Yeah, he's got the tan. He's got the forever tan. Look, and here's the thing I would say. Look, the Kennedys know what they're doing. They know what their name carries. Mm-hmm. What their name carries in the Black community is what would knock Joe Biden off. Look, everybody else is a tolerant voter. They just don't want Donald Trump back.
Mm-hmm.
But the Black community feels like they owe the Kennedys something for, going out and getting their heads blown off, trying to help them.
Yeah.
Because they literally got their heads blown off.
Yeah. I didn't know like the Kennedy family did that much for.
Oh God, yeah.
Black people.
Well, it isn't that they accomplished that much. They were the first ones to publicly politic in the Black community, meet with the Black community, and try to bring them along. And man, I mean, obviously it turned out to be really dangerous, but that isn't what killed him. That he screwed over the mafia guys that got him elected. I don't care what anybody tells you. You can't do that to an Italian. Their pride won't allow them to not kill you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And people just don't understand how it works, but that's how it actually works. If you made the deal, you got to do your part of the deal. So, imagine if you were a famous mafia guy and you helped get them elected, and then they tried to investigate you and have you arrested.
Oh, yeah.
You look stupid to your friends. That's the problem. It isn't that they tried to investigate and get rid of some of these guys. They made them look stupid to their friends.
After they basically campaigned on their behalf in their little...
Right. Yeah. So it's that is a misunderstanding between cultures right there. It didn't work out well.
Oh God, yeah.
It didn't work out well. It didn't. So
I'm curious to see what other countries think of Kennedy running now against Joe Biden. Like the only news that gets out of America is about Biden being old. And that's all I keep hearing about. Like even people ask me, and I'm like, dude, he's actually done quite a lot of shit, but Democrats are just terrible at like using a stump speech.
Like, here's what I will tell you on this and probably get myself in trouble. Every time I see a Democratic messenger on the news, I go, that is the most unrelatable person I've ever seen. I don't know them. I don't have any idea who they are. Why are they talking? And why are they saying all this shit that doesn't matter? If Democrats could get back to talking to and about working people, they could be the powerhouse that they once were. Yeah, you don't have as much of union backing because that time in American life seems to be over, although we're moving manufacturing back here now from Asia. So maybe that's going to make a comeback. But I don't know who Democrats are even talking to. I know from my run for statewide office here for the Democratic Party, you've heard all this stuff out of me. I don't know who they're talking to. They assume that there's an awful lot of people that are just going to vote for him. And they've been wrong over and over and over, especially in the South. In the South, you've got to have a bit of bravado. They don't like weak men. It doesn't work down here. You got to have a little swing to you, and you got to be able to call shit like you see it. Kennedy will do well down here. He will. And God forbid, he may be the guy that takes Biden down, but that doesn't mean he can win in the general. And nobody can afford to have Donald Trump back.
The weird part is I have a feeling that even Republicans are kind of tempted to vote for him just because of the name cachet that it carries.
Right.
And
and look, the news hasn't turned on him yet. He's had a glory ride so far. Wait till all the news turns on him. Look, there's an there's an economic machine behind politics that nobody wants to hear about or know about. And when they say an election costs $1 billion, you know, and it's not government funded, that's a lot of people that have a say in what happens, you know, and so they push whatever levers they can of power. And, you know, I don't know what to tell anybody. I'm surprised where we are in America right now. You know, I'm surprised where we are in Oklahoma.
What was that weird number that they gave when you were checking about the Oklahoma County race, how much that election spend is? Wasn't there someone who gave us a random number?
So there were, well, I think what you have to look at is it's price per vote. So there are some races where the price per vote, there was a lady that ran for a county race that really didn't do anything, did billboards and stuff and spent like $220,000. And that price per vote was over $100 a vote. Because people just, they don't vote, they don't care. I don't know how to solve that because I do really, really interesting stuff in politics. And, you know, I get 10,000 people pay attention to it. When you would think half the population would give a shit, they just don't. They're just working themselves to death and can't see above that never-ending incoming deal of water that's almost drowning them. And on that positive note, but that's where people are. Look, we've got people here that are multi-billionaires, and then we've got everybody else. There's very little in between. There really is. There's very little in between. And the ones at the bottom are more than willing to fight each other to not be last. They're not worried about being first. They just don't want to be last. And it's tragic. You know, it's tragic. I know. Downer Sean, Debbie Downer Sean.
I know. This is the middle of my afternoon, God damn it.
Sorry about it. Well, so here's the question. Is it time for a Kennedy? You know, is it? I mean, look, you know, I'm going to go talk to that Second Amendment group on the 22nd next month. And this lady asked me, and she goes, how did you get in on that? And I go, well, I went to their meeting and I wanted to talk about schools, but that guy left early and they were so impressed I showed up by myself that they said, hey, would you want to speak? Look, we as a state and as a country and everything have to do something different. You know, all I hear about you guys is what I see on the news. And quite honestly, I'm a little iffy on that. Right. And I know it's not a good idea to get into that. But look, I don't see you guys being more than 5 or 6 steps right behind us doing the same thing.
Oh, so, we usually catch up. It's like how I told you about the economic system where people are now in debt, have multiple credit cards, multiple loans. We caught up in no time, Sean.
Welcome to our world. And, you know, get you in so much debt that you work yourself to death. And, and you know, your parents and that generation is used to working that much anyway, so it doesn't matter. But there's, I don't know, and I really mean this. I usually want to believe that I could be involved with solutions, but I can't be involved with a solution where people won't agree that they're in the shitty boat. They won't agree. They're like, no, you're in the shitty boat. I am not. And you're like, yeah, it's the same water. We only have one oar. We're going in a circle. Yes, you're in the shitty boat. I am not in the shitty boat. You know, man, dude, I don't know.
No,
it's weird. Yeah.
Super. And I don't see like Trump's. Did you see the Trump tape of him waving those papers? You can hear the papers rustling.
Here's the thing, though. His base doesn't care, and that's whose mind you want to change and bring them back into the fold of America. They don't care. They literally don't care. There's nothing you're going to say about the guy that is going to be bad enough to make them turn on him. It's just not. And I don't. What do you do with that?
Like that level of worship for political leader is just so fucking odd. I mean,
when if you knew anything about politics, they've got to manipulate maybe 100 different groups to become president and raise ungodly amounts of money. And that would make you a con man. And I don't care what side you're on or anything else, that's what it takes to become president. And they're skilled, and look, DeSantis, I thought had a shot. The more I listened to the guy, he has no people skills. You know why Bill Clinton became president?
Oh, amazing people skills, even if he was getting too close to the girls he was talking to.
Exactly. But, in America, do we care about these pervy men? No, we don't. We need to quit lying and saying we do, because we want to act like we do. We don't. We hire one after another. But is that what men are like that run for those kind of offices? I mean, I really mean it. Are we the ones that are wrong about the way we think of the personality that runs for that office?
See, it's that thing I told you, right? Where a CEO, someone who runs for president, they have to be slightly psychopathic and wonky in their head to crave and run for that kind of power. And
or why would you waste your time? You got to, like me in politics. I do city politics. People, whenever they go, you work for me, and I go, I make $25 a month, my friend. 25. I'm here because I want to help. Now I can go back to my job. I don't need to do this stuff if you think you can do it better. But when you get to their level, there is real money involved. I mean, you're making decent money at least. The governor of Oklahoma gets to spend $14 billion every year. So if that $14 billion was going to people that were business enemies of yours, you get to move it and send it to somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not really graft, but it's graft. $14 billion every year.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That is, I would have never thought of it. Like, even state governors having like that much discretionary funds. So.
Right. Isn't it amazing? Well, it's not all discretionary, but if you could peel $5 billion off for your friends, they're happy they got you in and they're happy to keep you in. And then it lets the next person know what the job is. So we went through some problems here with the county commissioners. And when I first moved here about 25 years ago, and a whole bunch of them got arrested. I mean, it was crazy. Prosecuted, went to jail, all this shit. A couple of governors were felons by the end of it. One of them went to jail. The guy used to come to my original restaurant, nicest guy in the world. Wrote a really great autobiography, on basically how to become a politician. In high school, he wanted to be a high school president. So he memorized every single person's name in a school of 1,200, I believe it was. And if it wasn't 1,200, it was 900. Every person. So when he walked down the hallway, he could say their name, and that's how he got elected.
Oh, wow.
That's retail politics right there. Yeah, it's genius. You just go, that's all you did was memorize their names? And he goes, everybody wants to hear their name said by somebody who's important.
Oh God, yeah.
Right. So, I don't aspire to be any of those things. We'll see where all of this goes. Look, the Kennedy thing, and the term is called Kennedy magic. Like they magically have it. And if you really watch a movie about John F. Kennedy when he started, he was a shitty speaker and everything else. His dad, much like me, was like, hey man, came to America. Let's own this goddamn place. Let's take our seat. And so he put them in the money system they were in back east. Those people all knew that Kennedy's dad was a criminal, but that doesn't mean you don't have to do business with it. And so instead of being a Republican and trying to get their support, he went totally the opposite way and acted like they were working class with that weird ass accent that all of them have. They have a fakest ass East Coast accent I've ever heard that makes no sense outside of their home. It just doesn't.
Isn't there this great joke that Americans will vote for anybody who has a weird fucking accent, which is why I'm so worried about how RFK sounds.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. I mean this. He might do enough damage to Biden to knock him out, and that is probably everybody's concern. And that's why I'll keep you informed when they try to bring him and this Marianne Williamson lady in, how much blowback there is, because I don't care. Hey man, I think everybody needs a competitor to keep your ass in a seat and keep you working. I think competition is good. If you're just up there and you're walking, right. Hey man, you got to do something. Look, the DeSantis running against Donald Trump has made Donald Trump go even crazier and saying more crazy shit and everything. And it lets you see what the guy's willing to do to get elected. And then if you elect him, you're on your own. You have dual citizenship. I can get out of here too. I don't have any idea what these folks think is going to happen. But we haven't had a civil war here in a very long time. The 1960s were the closest to it we became, and that was over Vietnam and race relations. Yeah. Think about Brexit. Was Brexit caused because America got England into the war in Iraq? And the English people were so pissed that they didn't have a backbone to stand up to America. They decided to cut them off from everybody around them that supported them because they couldn't do it to America. I mean, give that some thought, and we'll talk about it on another podcast. But you go,
oh, good.
Somebody brought that up, and I'm like, my God, you might be right. Wow. And they just flagrantly went around.
Tony Blair.
Right. How many Brits died over there? How much money did it cost you? It cost us $9 trillion for this guy to try to go revenge a guy that tried to put a hit out on his dad. His dad was the head of the CIA. How many hits did he put out?
I know. That's the weird part.
God almighty, man. Yeah. So it's I don't know where all this goes. I mean, I really mean it. I don't have any idea. I'm 60. So, maybe the next 10 years is a little rough, but I don't suspect that I'm going to be here to see regime change or anything. No. I think Trump was probably as close as we got to it. And January 6th may have ruined that for his group, because it's the worst coup attempt in history.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like we are professionals at going to your country and doing a coup. And that was the most embarrassing, shitty coup attempt I have ever seen. It was like, I can do a coup. I'm just showing you I could do it and not do it. I mean, wow.
It's crazy. Like almost they had control of the Capitol, but nobody had thought ahead to figure out what the next step was. They were just looking at each other going like, okay, maybe I'm going to wipe some poo on the wall and steal a lectern and run out.
And then I'm going to leave. Right. You go, well, evidently you guys, that tells me that most of those folks didn't spend any time in a library. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Why was there not a book? Why was nobody in charge? It literally is the most embarrassing coup attempt I've ever seen from the country that does it really well to other people.
See, that shows that nobody in the intelligence community, nobody else gave a shit about Trump being there. They were like, this is an election. We were going to shut the fuck up. And it's just these uneducated morons running around in there going like, okay, we got the government.
Right. Yeah, you got the government. Okay, what are you going to do now? So have you ever heard the analogy of a dog chasing a car, barking at it? What do they do? What do they do when they catch the car?
That was exactly what happened to the rioters on Jan 6th.
Yeah. You go, okay, you're here. Now what? We had a deal like maybe 10 years ago, this group of dreamers, meaning people that came to America unwillingly as children, but still are not citizens. And they wanted to have a meeting with Democratic leaders, which in retrospect, they obviously didn't know much about government. But so we all go to meet with them. And finally, this guy that was a state senator goes, "What do you want?" He goes, "All you're doing is sharing your feelings with me. And quite frankly, I don't give a shit." He goes, "What do you want? If you don't know what you want, how do you expect me to go get it for you? Now, if you're going to call me and have me come down here, have the respect to know what you want."
Oh, wow.
Right. January 6th. What do you want?
Yeah.
You want Donald back in? Are you sure? Are you sure?
Because you'll look a little bit confused on your Facebook profile.
Right. I mean, and that's what I would say. I rarely talk about it just because, it was a disgusting day in our history, but you just go, the single worst coup attempt in modern history.
I think that's what the documentary should be called.
I mean, and we've got sheriffs and all this other stuff from Oklahoma that were there, and you guys couldn't organize better than this. You run a sheriff's department. I mean, my God, how could it be this bad? So I don't know, bro. I'm interested. I hope I live long enough to see where all of this goes. So I know we've only got a few minutes left. Let me tell you something that people in India may not care about, but people here. So in politics right now, everybody that people picked on in high school are the people they're still picking on because it works. And so Oklahoma, our head of education, put out this crazy video yesterday about trans people in the bathroom. Bathrooms only for girls. So we had one incident in Edmond, Oklahoma. 700,000 students. We have one incident of a trans kid that transfers in, looks like a girl, says it's a girl, signs up and everything else, goes into the bathroom. And now I don't know if these girls were being mean to her or, like girls will do, to the new girl, or if they said something to her about being trans, which evidently there was no way to tell, but this girl beat the shit out of one of them. And the parents say she was knocked out. Their kids were knocked out on the floor. And the other one, the principal was like, yeah, it was a minor scuffle. So let's say it's somewhere in between. We have one incident, and this guy probably spent $15,000 on this video yesterday about it and trying to scare people. And you go, but I can tell you literally by name right now, 10 coaches and teachers that are being accused of violence, sexual assault, all this other stuff in these different schools that have not had their licenses begun to be removed.
And he's just focused on the stupid bathroom issue from that time.
Right. But I got to tell you, I was at this meeting in a really small town about 2 weeks ago, and three of the people in the audience brought it up. And I'm like, this stuff is not happening in small town Oklahoma. They would have run those people off or killed them.
I know. I'm like, in that small town, you should have asked them how many trans people are here that y'all are so bothered about this.
So worried.
Y'all probably know the 5 Democrats by name anyway, so just shut up and leave it alone.
Yeah. And more than likely, it's some elected official that likes to dress in women's clothing. It's really not the weirdo down the street that you think it is. I know. That's where we are, buddy. It is... my dad would be so embarrassed at what we have become and how petty and weird things have become. I'm glad he's not around to see this, because he would just be embarrassed. Let me take some bread out here real quick. All right. That one's done. Yeah, I'm trying to get out of town today. It's going to be all right. Let me see on this one.
Under a minute, so we might just get cut off.
Okay, well, take us out then, buddy.
That was the Villages podcast about Robert Kennedy Jr.
Woo! Robert Kennedy Jr. Woo!
Hell yeah.